We all know that we want to be loving people, and we all know that we have room for improvement. But there's a gap, and that gap can grow if we don't mind it. We tend to see people as the world sees people, and the world drives us to dehumanize people into categories and classes and causes over which we can stand apart and distinct or even above and morally superior. But God does not judge anyone's worth in any of those ways. And when we see people as God sees them, it's easier for us to love them as God loves them. Now, the goal of this series is to align our view with God's view. And if you recall, last week we looked at the fact that God forgave us a debt that we couldn't repay. So when others hurt us or annoy us or get in our way, he teaches us to cancel that debt. And we love people by forgiving them, their faults and their flaws, just as God has forgiven us the debt that we could never have paid. Today's message follows pretty logically, if not unexpectedly, from last week's. And basically, it is this in a sentence: don't play fair. Fair means even, equitable, impartial. Now that works well when it comes to money or business, things like that, but it doesn't work well at all, really, when it comes to people. And if you really want to grow in faith by loving people as Jesus asks us to love people, don't play fair. Fair doesn't work. Good people fail at relationships every day because they focus on fair. And playing fair can ruin relationships over time. It can destroy friendships. It can break up marriages. In fact, it will keep you from doing the good that you know you could and should do. God does not want you to play fair. Jesus teaches something much better than fair. We see it revealed in this parable today. In all the parables, Jesus raises the veil between heaven and earth, helping us understand earth in the larger context of heaven. And he says the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out at dawn to hire laborers, and after agreeing with them for the usual daily wage, he sent them into the vineyard. So we've all heard this story before. There's a guy who owns a vineyard. He needs seasonal workers. He goes down to the marketplace to look for people to help. It was a common custom. Laborers were gathered there looking for employment. Most of them were probably struggling, maybe poor. But on this day, they had the good fortune to get hired by this owner of the vineyard. And they all agree to the normal pay for their work. And then they get to work. And then we hear that going out at 9 o'clock, he saw others in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You too, go into my vineyard." Now, measurements of time were always approximate in the absence of clocks and watches. So let's say with about a quarter of the daylight hours gone, the owner went out again into the marketplace. He needs more help to get the job done. So he goes to the marketplace for more workers, and he repeats that process throughout the day. He continues to send laborers into the vineyard until late in the day. And then it says, when it was evening, the owner of the vineyard said to the foreman, "Summon the laborers, give them their pay, beginning with the last and ending with the first." Jewish law required that hired workers be paid each day at the end of that day. They were poor. They were mostly living hand to mouth, and they needed the money right away. But unexpectedly, the ones to get paid are the ones first who began work at the end of the day. When those who'd started around 5 o'clock received the usual daily wage. So when the first came, they thought they'd receive more. But they too got the usual daily wage. They thought they would get more because they'd worked more. Therefore, they deserved more. They demanded more. More was only fair. So they grumble against this landowner. And they say, these last worked only an hour, and you've made them equal to us. You bore the whole day's burden and heat, and you paid them the same as us. I think most of us would agree with this group. They definitely worked harder and longer and under more challenging conditions. They seem to have every right to complain. And I think most of us, if we were in the same situation, we would be thinking the same thing. But at the same time, notice the complaint. Essentially, it's this. You've made them equal to us. You've raised them up. You were generous to them. It isn't fair that you were generous to them. This happens all the time. We don't give generously to someone because we think someone else might complain. If we treat this child this way, this child will hear about it and be upset. If we allow her to take time off, then he's going to want time off too. If we give that one a raise, then everybody's going to want a raise. So the group grumbles and complains, it's not fair. And he says to them in reply, my friend, I'm not cheating you. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what is yours and go. What if I wish the last one gets the same as you? Now, he wasn't trying to insult them. He paid them what was promised. They got the usual wage. He did give them what they were owed. He just chose to give others more, a lot more than they were owed. He doesn't want to insult them, but he does question their motivation. Am I not free to do as I wish with my own money? Are you envious because I'm jealous? Are you jealous because I'm envious? Another translation gives us this famous line. Is your eye evil because I am generous? You ever hear that? I did. I didn't know what that meant, the evil eye. Well, it was an expression. It was common in that era. It described someone of ill intent, and it was brought on by envy. Envy can be a wicked thing. And that's why we have to make a distinction between envy and jealousy. Jealousy is when you want something that someone else has. Envy is when you want something someone else has and you don't want them to have it. Jealousy is a common reaction. It can also be a good one. You in shock yet? So far I've told you don't play fair and jealousy's good. See what you learn here? Here's why jealousy's good. Wanting what someone else has means that you value it, you like it, you love it. God is jealous for our hearts. You can be jealous of someone that has a great marriage or a job that they love or a fabulous home. Jealous means that you want the same things they have. But envy means that you want to take away what they have. You want to diminish or destroy their happiness or their blessings or their good fortune. And that's the guys in the parable. And the owner points out that they are acting with envy and that that's wrong. Now, as we've always said in a parable, someone's usually God and someone's usually us, and it's usually easy to figure which one is which. So the owner of the vineyard represents God, and he isn't fair. God does not play fair. Because again, fair means even, equitable, impartial. And God isn't any of those things. God does not value fair. He values grace and mercy. He values unmerited favor. And he doesn't let fair get in the way. And that's how he wants us to be. When there is an opportunity to give generously to another, don't use the excuse that, well, I can't do this for everyone, so I'm not going to do it for anyone. Make the difference you can make when and where you can make it. So this week, at least once, go ahead. Be extravagantly generous with someone else. And I'm not talking money. It can be with service or support or giving them your time when, quite frankly, you really don't want to be with them, or comfort or care. But be generous to people to whom you can be generous. And don't allow fairness to get in the way.